Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Prewriting and Brainstorming week. Let's think of this week as the first step towards building your midterm essay, which will be due in about a month's time. Now, a little over a month, really. Now, many people are, stressed out by the prospect of writing an essay. Most of us have probably done it before, but even if you haven't, the idea of this next month, in other words, weeks 5, 6, 7, and 8, will be to get us comfortable with the idea of writing an essay and, in a sense, guide us through the process so that it's not painful and instead maybe even exciting. Maybe that's going too far, but maybe you'll actually enjoy the process a little more if we kind of unpack it step by step. So, in the spirit of last week's topic, metaphors, I thought I would offer us an extended metaphor of sorts, and really, I would call it an analogy. What is an analogy? Well, it's a metaphor that is geared towards the purpose of instructing people how to do something. So, the metaphor or analogy I came up with for writing an essay is the idea of a diamond. Now, we see diamonds on people's wedding rings, but that's a polished, cut, finished form that goes back ultimately to it being a stone in the ground. So I see the pre-writing and brainstorming phase as analogous to, and I have a few pictures here of this. People at first they're looking for diamonds in the muddy, rocky, dirty ground, right? And people are scrabbling around and trying to find diamonds in an area where they think there will be diamonds, but they don't literally yet know where the diamonds are. So that's kind of the metaphor for the pre-writing stage. In pre-writing, you may not even know what the topic of your essay is going to be, right? So we're a long way from, cutting and polishing the essay because we don't even know what the topic is. So think of this phase as, using various brainstorming techniques, which I'll go into in the next video, to, kind of explore your own brain a bit and see, like a good way to start with an essay is ask yourself, what am I actually interested in? You'd be surprised in high school when, say, you had to write an essay in high school. Did you ask yourself that question, or did you look at the essay as like, oh, I have to think of something that seems like a correct topic for school? Some political issue, say, that I'm not really that interested in, but I'm going to write about. That right there, already the essay's become a more torturous kind of process because you're not interested in what it's about. And to be fair, maybe a teacher assigned you a topic you weren't interested in. But in this class, you get to choose your topic, which I feel that's a really important thing when teaching writing is let's start with the idea of writing about something we're interested in. So, yeah, a good place to start could be writing down topics that you're interested in, that you might want to write about. So that's this phase where I see this as similar to the miners searching for diamonds in the middle of all this rock and mud and soil that they don't know where the diamonds are, but they know they will find them somewhere. Keep that in mind, and then just to extend the metaphor. So the next process would be you have a rough diamond, right? So they don't come out of the ground cut into a neat shape that will fit neatly into a wedding ring, right? They come out of the ground rough. So now you have a diamond, you've found it, right? But it's rough. So what happens next? They're cleaned and then they're sold to someone who I don't know exactly what the process is, right? But it ends up being polished into something like this. And then it acquires this final polished form of the diamond. So this would be the step where you're spell checking, you're making sure it's all perfect right before it goes to market. And it's important at this phase to think, I'm going to let the topic come to me. Rather than stressing out and staring at a blank page, you can begin with a list of what are some things that you think are interesting in the world. Are you interested in fashion? Are you interested in beer? Are you interested in music? Are you interested in farming? There's just all kinds of topics that I would assume each of us has a handful of things we're interested in. We may not be experts, but we're interested in them. And it would be fun to do a little research on them and write an essay about them. So that brings me to the next idea I wanted to get across about pre-writing. Think of this as a stage that's very loose. You're just writing things down as they come to you. You don't need to worry about spelling. You don't need to worry about, is my semicolon perfect? You're probably not even going to use any semicolons at this point, right? All of that stuff would be more the polishing phase, the final phase of making a diamond. So don't put the cart before the horse, as they say. Stay loose. Let your brain do the thinking for you. Now that sounds a little odd, right? What does it mean to say, let your brain do the thinking for you? Well, it means, in a sense, if we stare at a blank page and ask ourselves, what am I going to write about? What's my topic for this essay? That can block the flow of ideas that could actually be of value to write about. That's what I mean by being loose. Don't try to focus everything down to one topic at this point. And I've thought about another analogy that might be of use to people at this phase, which is, strangely enough, therapy. When therapy first came around, it did not immediately make sense to everyone. Why would you go into an office and lie on a couch and begin talking to someone about your life? The idea I'm getting at is, what happens when you walk into a therapist's office? They don't ask you to immediately define what your problems are. They instead probably take more of a free association approach, or at least in the analogy I'm making here, what I'm thinking of is the therapist having you in, you sit on the couch, and then they say, just start talking. And the idea is, by remaining loose, by not immediately confronting uncomfortable topics, they listen to you talk, and you start to discover things just through a kind of flow of ideas. And, this idea is sometimes called free association. In a way, it's a kind of brainstorming, isn't it? In the room with the therapist. So think of, when you have to write an essay, something you could do is create a folder on your desktop and say, I'm not going to start writing my essay yet, but I'm going to throw a bunch of things in that folder that might be of interest to me. So in this folder for an essay, you could put, say, images that you think are interesting. So say you were researching, say you're researching guitars. You're interested in guitars, you're going to write an essay that's somehow about guitars. You can start the essay by clipping photos from the internet and just throwing them into that folder on your desktop. And then, you could open a document to write in, and you could write down just a bunch of notes, ideas that come to you about guitars, and you could stare at the pictures you've assembled in this folder. And that could kind of be the start of your essay, even though you haven't written any of the words that are actually going to be in your essay, and you don't have a thesis sentence, you don't have a topic, you don't have any of that yet, but you're doing pre-writing. Even if it's looking at a picture, that's a kind of pre-writing. It's a process to kind of stay loose and let this sort of these images and notes become a kind of stew out of which could bubble up the focus of what you want to write about. And so I'm using a bunch of metaphors here. I hope it's not confusing. The metaphor of this stew is similar to the metaphor of the diamond miners at the point where they're just searching through the rock and earth to find diamonds in the first place. So it's, you stay loose, it's kind of chaotic, you explore some ideas that don't end up mattering, but the real idea is trust that process, that through that kind of loose fumbling stage, looking at images, taking notes, trust that something will come to you. A focus for your essay will come out of that. And so, okay, so what's my final point here on this video? I want us to get away from the anxiety of the blank page, this moment of fear and anxiety where you sit down and open a document that you say, okay, now I'm going to type the first sentence of my essay, and you don't know what to write and it feels bad. I want us to get away from that. And at the same moment where we might have done that in the past, instead we do some pre-writing and brainstorming. We stay loose. We have a little fun even. We bring some images from the internet into a folder. We look them over. Do those make us think of anything? Oh, we have a weird thought that the photo made us think of. We note that down in the file. That thought may have nothing to do with the final essay you write, but you take down 5 of those. You bring some more pictures in. You do a few brainstorming exercises of the sort we're going to look at this week. And out of that kind of bubbling stew of notes, ideas, and images, you start to see something you might want to write about. All right, that's enough for one video.